My son-in-law changed the lock on my own house while I was at the doctor. When I got back, he opened the door with a smirk and said, "From today on, Grace, you need to ask for permission to go outside. It is for your own safety." My daughter was right beside him, standing in dead silence, avoiding my gaze entirely. In that exact moment, it hit me like a ton of bricks. I had become a prisoner in the very home I built with my own 2 hands, and the worst was still yet to come. But before I go any further, make sure you are subscribed to the channel and write in the comments, where are you watching this video from? We love knowing how far our stories reach across the country. My name is Grace. I am 71 years old, and for 42 years I worked as a registered nurse at a busy county hospital. Graveyard shifts, weekends, national holidays. I took care of hundreds of patients, held the hands of the dying, and comforted shattered families. When I retired 3 years ago, I figured I would finally get some peace and quiet in the house I bought all by myself, brick by brick, with money earned from decades of literal blood, sweat, and tears. This house is not a massive mansion. It has 3 modest bedrooms, a simple living room, a kitchen I remodeled twice using my own hard-earned savings, and a backyard with a beautiful peach tree I planted when my daughter Melissa was 5 years old. But every single square inch of this place was earned by me. Widowed at 32, I raised Melissa as a single mom after my husband died in a motorcycle crash. I never asked anyone for a handout, I never depended on a man, and I never backed down from a challenge. Until 6 months ago. That was when Melissa and her husband, Kevin, moved in with me. At the time, it felt natural, sweet even. Melissa had just been laid off from her job at a local boutique. Kevin was barely scraping by on meager commissions as a salesman, and the rent on their downtown apartment had just gone through the roof. "Mom," she said to me that Sunday afternoon, holding my hand across the kitchen table, "we are in a really tight spot right now. Do you think we could crash here with you for a few months? Just until we get back on our feet." I looked at my 38-year-old daughter, saw the heavy bags under her tired eyes, and I simply could not say no. She was my everything, my only family. "Of course, sweetie," I told her. "This house has always been your home too." That was my mistake, the first of many. Kevin showed up 3 days later with a rented U-Haul truck. They hauled in furniture, boxes, and random junk that immediately started cluttering my living room. He greeted me with a hug that was a little too tight and a smile that felt a little too practiced. "Thanks, Mom. You are a total lifesaver. We are going to pay you back for this, you will see." At first, they genuinely seemed grateful. Kevin fixed the leaky kitchen faucet that had been dripping for months, repainted the front porch railing, and swapped out a blown light bulb in the hallway. Melissa cooked, helped clean, and would hug me tight before bed. "You are the best mom in the world," she would whisper. But things started shifting in such subtle ways that I did not even notice it happening. It was like water slowly seeping through a tiny crack in the drywall. You only realize there is a problem when the whole room is flooded. It started with little comments, tiny, supposedly innocent jabs. "Hey Grace, isn't that blouse getting a little threadbare? It looks like it is out of the 1990s. We should take you to the mall and upgrade your wardrobe. Geez, Grace, are you really still lugging around these cast iron skillets? They weigh a ton. I am going to order you some lightweight non-stick pans on Amazon. This couch belongs in a dumpster, Mom. People are going to come over and think we are not taking care of you." Every single comment was delivered with a warm smile and a tone dripping with fake concern, making it seem like they were just looking out for me. And I, like a fool, bought it. Because they were my daughter and son-in-law. Because they lived with me and kept me company. Because I was starting to feel too old, too exhausted, and too lonely to put up a fight. 2 months after they moved in, I realized my friends had stopped coming over. Connie, my best friend of 40 years who always came over for drip coffee and muffins every Tuesday morning, totally dropped off the map. I gave her a call. "Connie, you have been a ghost lately. Is everything okay?" There was a weird, heavy silence on the other end of the line. "Grace, I tried stopping by your place 3 different times over the last couple of weeks. Kevin answered the door and told me you were taking a nap, that you were not up for visitors, and that you were just exhausted." My stomach tied itself into a knot. I had not been napping, and I had absolutely no idea she had even stopped by. He said, "You have been getting really confused lately, forgetting things." He told me it was best if I just gave you some space. I hung up the phone, my hands visibly shaking. I marched straight into the living room. Kevin was sprawled on the couch, the same couch he called garbage, but that I refused to throw out mindlessly scrolling on his smartphone. Kevin, Connie just told me she came by to visit and you turned her away. He glanced up, his expression entirely too relaxed. Oh, right. Sorry about that, Grace. You were asleep on the recliner, and I figured it was better to let you rest. You need to take it easy. You know how it is. Father time catches up with all of us. I was not asleep on any recliner. Connie is my oldest friend. She is welcome in this house whenever she wants. Something flickered in his face. The smile stayed plastered on his mouth, but his eyes turned completely cold. Sure thing, Grace. My bad. I was just worried about your health. I will let you know next time. But there was no next time. Because a week later, when I got back from running errands at the grocery store on a Thursday morning, the front door lock had been completely swapped out. My key would not even slide into the cylinder. I tried again. Nothing. I rang the doorbell, my heart hammering in my chest. Kevin opened the door, flashing that same grin. Whoops, hey there, Grace. Did you forget your new key? New key? What on earth are you talking about? Oh, we swapped out the deadbolts yesterday. Strictly for security. There have been a lot of break-ins around the neighborhood lately. There were no break-ins. We had lived in this quiet suburban cul-de-sac for 28 years without a single issue. And where is my key? Ah, I only got copies made for Melissa and me so far. Honestly, it is safer this way. You do not need to stress about locking up. If you want to head out somewhere, just give us a heads up and we will unlock it for you. I just stood there frozen on the welcome mat, clutching my grocery bags, staring at my son-in-law standing in the doorway of my own home, casually informing me that I needed a hall pass to leave my own property. That was the exact moment it clicked. I was no longer the owner of this house. I was an inmate. For the next few days, I tried to act like everything was normal. I made dinner, dusted the living room, and watched the evening news. But something inside me had completely shattered. Every time I walked past the front door, the shiny new brass deadbolt stared back at me, mocking me. A lock I had no key for. Melissa refused to make eye contact. When I tried to bring up the lock situation, she brushed it off, saying it was Kevin's idea, that it really was a smart security upgrade, and that I was making a mountain out of a molehill. Mom, aren't you just glad you have us here? You don't have to be rattling around this giant house all alone anymore. Giant house. As if a basic 3-bedroom ranch was some kind of sprawling estate. As if I had not lived here perfectly happy and independent for years before they ever showed up with their U-Haul. But what truly broke me was realizing my life savings were being siphoned away. I have always been meticulous with my finances. 42 years working in healthcare teaches you how to stretch a dollar. My pension brought in $3,000 a month, which was plenty for a single retiree. I also had a solid nest egg of $80,000 sitting in a high-yield savings account my entire life's work. Kevin started asking me to sign blank checks, just for groceries, Grace, or to cover the utility bills. I signed them. They were living under my roof, after all. Pitching in on the electric and water bills seemed fair. $400, $600, $1,000. Those numbers made sense. Until I started noticing my checking account was constantly hovering near zero. I managed to grab the bank statements out of the mailbox before Kevin could intercept them. He had taken to hiding the mail, claiming he was organizing the bills so I would not have to deal with the paperwork. $15,000 gone in 2 months. I sat on the edge of my bed, staring at the printed numbers, the room spinning around me. Groceries, $2,000. We were feeding 3 adults, not an army. What on earth were they buying? Best Buy, $3,000. What electronics? Wire transfer to Kevin's personal checking account, $5,000. Fancy steakhouses, $1,500. Gas stations, $800. I did not even own a car anymore. I marched into the living room, gripping the bank statement. Kevin and Melissa were watching TV on a massive new flat screen that had magically appeared on the wall last week. He had sworn up and down he bought it with a bonus from work, a gift to spruce up the place. Kevin, turn that off. We need to talk. He hit pause, swiveling his head toward me with that sickening smile. What is up, Grace? I shoved the paper in his face. $15,000 has been drained from my account in 8 weeks. I absolutely did not authorize this. His smile did not even twitch. Of course you did, Grace. You signed every single one of those checks yourself. Are you losing your marbles? I signed checks to keep the lights on and buy milk, not a $5,000 wire transfer to your personal bank account. Melissa stood up, walked over, and gently placed a hand on my shoulder. Her voice was hushed and condescending, exactly how you would speak to a confused toddler. Mom, you are getting your wires crossed again. Kevin is just managing your finances for you. You specifically asked him to help out because you were having trouble remembering things. I never asked for that. Not once. Yes, you did, Mom. She shot a knowing glance at Kevin. Do you remember that time you completely forgot to pay the water bill? Or when you could not find your checkbook and swore somebody broke in and stole it? I forgot to pay the water bill exactly one time, once in 71 years of living on this earth. And the checkbook was just shoved in the back of a desk drawer. I misplaced it, a completely normal mistake anyone could make. But they were spinning these tiny, everyday slips into ironclad proof that I was going senile. Mom, Melissa continued in that sugary, fake voice, we are here to take care of you, so you can just relax and enjoy your golden years. Everything is totally under control. Under their control. I marched to the desktop computer to check my online banking, but the password had been changed. I picked up the landline to call the bank's fraud department, but Kevin seemingly materialized out of thin air and snatched the receiver right out of my hand. Whoa, easy there, Grace. Just take a breath. Let me handle it. There is no reason to stress yourself out. Give me the phone back. That is my hard-earned money. For the first time, I saw the mask slip. The goofy, caring son-in-law act evaporated. His eyes went dead, like a shark's. He leaned in close. His voice dropped to a menacing, gravelly whisper. Listen to me, and listen good. You are living here, using water, running up the electric bill, eating the food that I am providing. Do you think a free ride lasts forever? Do you think this is a charity? We are breaking our backs, taking care of you, and you should be on your knees, thanking us instead of making up these crazy delusions. Melissa did not say a single word. She just stared at the hardwood floor. Melissa, my voice cracked, tears springing to my eyes. Honey, are you hearing the way he is speaking to me? She finally looked up, and the look in her eyes shattered whatever was left of my heart. She was not my daughter anymore. She looked at me like I was a pitiful, annoying stranger. Mom, drop it. Kevin is right. You are being completely ungrateful. Ungrateful. I was being called ungrateful in my own home for having the audacity to ask why my life savings were being embezzled. That night, laying in my master bedroom, the room that was still technically mine, I stared at the ceiling fan going in circles and accepted the grim reality. I was being robbed blind, systematically, methodically, and my own flesh and blood was the accomplice. But I had no idea the true nightmare was just gearing up, because 2 weeks later, when Kevin insisted on driving me to a dentist appointment and we finally got back, I walked down the hallway to find my entire life boxed up. All my belongings had been hauled out back to the cramped, uninsulated tool shed in the backyard. A tiny, damp, windowless shack that was barely big enough to hold a lawnmower, stinking of mildew and old gasoline. What in God's name is going on? I froze in the doorway of my master bedroom. The room was totally unrecognizable. A massive king-sized bed, brand new modern dressers, completely redecorated. Kevin strolled out of the attached master bath, grinning ear to ear. Hey there, Grace. We really just needed the extra square footage, and that little shed out back is actually perfect for you. It is cozy, very private. We already moved all your boxes out there. I have slept in this room for 28 years. I know, but we are a married couple. We need the space now. You understand how it is, right? I walked out the back door and trudged over to the shed. My clothes were wadded up inside cheap cardboard boxes. My expensive orthopedic mattress, the one I had saved up for after my lower back surgery, was gone. In its place was a paper-thin, stained cot that looked like it came from a prison cell. The air was thick with the smell of wet rot. A single exposed light bulb hung from a frayed wire on the ceiling. I sat on the edge of that disgusting cot and sobbed. I cried for my beautiful home, for my stolen retirement, for the daughter who sold me out, and for my dignity, which was being ground into the dirt day after day. But as the tears flowed, a spark ignited in my chest. Pure, unadulterated rage. Not the kind of anger that makes you scream and throw things. The cold, calculating kind of anger that gives you tunnel vision. Because I am Grace, a retired frontline nurse, a fiercely independent widow, a woman who raised a child on a single income, who paid off a mortgage, who survived 42 years of double shifts and holding back the Grim Reaper. I was absolutely not going to let two lazy parasites steal everything I built. That night, while Kevin and Melissa slept comfortably in my stolen bed, I started putting together a plan. Over the next 2 months, I learned how to become a ghost in my own house. I watched, I listened, and I documented every single move they made. Because if 42 years in nursing taught me anything, it was the lethal combination of patience and clinical precision. I woke up the next morning feeling like I had been hit by a truck. That awful cot was absolute murder on my bad back. I looked around the miserable shack, inhaling the damp mildew, but my mind was made up. If I wanted to survive this, I had to play chess, not checkers. Confronting them directly was useless. They held all the cards, they controlled the money, and they had each other to corroborate their lies. I needed cold, hard evidence. I needed backup. I needed a bulletproof exit strategy. I dragged myself up, deliberately put on my most worn-out, pathetic-looking sweater, and shuffled into the kitchen. Kevin was sipping coffee and reading the morning paper at the island counter. My island, drinking out of my favorite floral mug that my mother had bought me in Sedona. "Morning, Grace," he chirped with that fake, wide smile. "Sleep okay out in your cozy little cabin?" I took a deep breath and swallowed the bile rising in my throat. "Slept fine, thanks." He looked me up and down. "You look exhausted. You want me to call your doctor and set up an evaluation?" "Not necessary. I feel fine." I grabbed a piece of toast and poured myself a cup of black coffee. When I opened the fridge, I noticed a massive grocery haul. Imported brie cheese, expensive bottles of Napa Valley Cabernet, artisanal prosciutto luxury items I never bought because they cost a fortune, all purchased with my stolen savings. Melissa wandered in wearing a silk robe, yawning and barely acknowledging my existence. She reached straight into the fridge and grabbed a bottle of cold-pressed organic orange juice that probably cost $8 a pop. "Mom, I am meeting some girls for brunch downtown today. Just chill out here and take it easy." Like I needed her permission to exist in my own kitchen. I waited for them to finally leave, Kevin heading out on sales calls, Melissa heading to brunch. Then, I went to work. First up, a paper trail. I knew Kevin had to be keeping the financial documents somewhere. I quietly tossed their room, checking under the bed, behind the new dressers, until I hit pay dirt. A heavy black binder shoved on the top shelf of their closet. Inside were all the bank statements. My bank statements. The reality was far more terrifying than I had imagined. They had not stolen $15,000. They had drained $35,000 in 3 months. Massive wire transfers, endless ATM withdrawals. Kevin had even opened a secret credit card in my name, with a $10,000 limit, and it was completely maxed out. Charges at high-end department stores, 5-star steakhouses, even a luxury weekend getaway to Miami they took last month, claiming Kevin had won a company sales incentive trip. Lies. Every single word was a lie. I pulled out a beat-up old smartphone and started snapping pictures of every single page. Kevin had bought me a brand new iPhone a few weeks back, claiming it was easier for seniors to use. But I had kept my old Android phone stashed deep inside a box of winter coats in the shed. An untraceable burner phone they had no idea existed. I dug deeper into the binder and found printed email chains between Kevin and Melissa. Reading them made my blood run cold. "Babe, the old lady still has about 80 grand sitting in the high-yield savings. If we can wire that over to the joint account, we have enough for a down payment on a luxury condo in the city. But what if she notices?" "She won't notice a thing. She is completely out of it lately. The other day she could not even find her reading glasses. Give it a few more weeks, and we can easily get her committed to a memory care ward, claim she has late-stage dementia. It will be a total cakewalk after that. Committed. They were plotting to lock me away in a psychiatric ward just to liquidate my life savings. My hands were shaking so violently I nearly dropped the phone, but I kept snapping pictures. Every email, every text screenshot, every fraudulent transfer. Then I hit the absolute bottom of the binder. A legal document that made the room spin. A power of attorney, granting Kevin full legal control over my finances and medical decisions. And at the bottom, my signature, or at least a very clumsy forgery of it. I studied the ink. The slant was all wrong. I always loop my letters leaning slightly to the left, a habit I picked up after breaking my right wrist decades ago. The forgery leaned hard to the right. It was completely bogus. Right behind it was a drafted real estate contract, a listing agreement to put my house on the market. He was prepping to sell my home right out from under me. I sat on the plush carpet of their bedroom, surrounded by the paper evidence of my own impending ruin, and forced myself to breathe. Do not panic, Grace. Play it smart. I packed the binder back exactly as I found it, slid it onto the top shelf, and walked back out to the shed. I unzipped the side of my awful mattress and stuffed the old smartphone deep into the foam padding. Then I did something I had not done in over a month. I left the property. I just walked out. The front door was deadbolted, of course, but the side door off the garage was not. I slipped out the side gate and hit the sidewalk. The morning sun hit my face, and I realized how long it had been since I felt fresh air without Kevin or Melissa hovering over me, constantly harping about how dangerous it was for a senior citizen to take a walk. I power-walked 4 blocks down the street to Connie's house. I rang her doorbell, my heart hammering against my ribs. She opened the door, her jaw practically hitting the floor. "Grace! Oh my Lord, where have you been? I have been sick with worry. I have tried calling a dozen times. Can I come in?" "Connie, I need to talk to you right now." We sat at her kitchen island. She poured me a glass of ice water. I took a deep breath, and I spilled everything. Every horrific detail. The deadbolts, the maxed-out credit cards, the mildewed shed, the twisted emails, the forged power of attorney, their master plan to lock me in an asylum. Connie went completely pale. "Grace, this is a nightmare. This is elder abuse. It is financial fraud. It is a massive felony." "I know, but I need professional help. My own daughter is in on it. If I go to the cops right now with just a crazy story, Kevin will just pull out that fake power of attorney and tell them I am losing my mind." She stared into space for a second. Then her eyes lit up. "My nephew, Robert Hayes. He is a partner at a law firm downtown. He specializes in family law and elder abuse cases. Let me call him right now." She got me an appointment for the very next morning. Connie promised she would cover for me, saying she swung by to take me to a routine dentist appointment if Kevin or Melissa asked any questions. I snuck back into my house the exact way I left. Side gate, garage door, kitchen. Kevin got home about 30 minutes later. "Hey Grace, where were you hiding? I tried calling your phone and you did not pick up." My new iPhone was sitting right on the kitchen counter, exactly where I left it. "Oh, I was out in the backyard looking at the peach tree. I guess I didn't hear it ring." He narrowed his eyes, suspicious, but he let it drop. That night, lying on that excruciatingly thin mattress, staring at the water stains on the ceiling, I took inventory of everything they had stolen in just 3 months. My safe haven, my retirement fund, my dignity, my only child. But I also took inventory of what I still possessed. My razor-sharp mind, my grit. And now, hard evidence. The next morning, I slipped out the side gate while they were still asleep. Connie picked me up down the block and drove me straight to Robert Hayes' law office. He was a sharp guy in his early 40s, wearing a crisp suit, and his eyes missed absolutely nothing. I handed over the burner phone and pulled up the photos. I walked him through the whole timeline. He sat back in his leather chair, taking meticulous notes. When I finished, he looked up, his expression a mix of disgust and absolute resolve. "Grace, what they are doing is textbook financial exploitation, fraud, forgery, and unlawful detainment. These are serious, heavy-hitting felonies." "I know," I said, my voice barely a whisper. "And my daughter? Is she going to prison too?" He let out a heavy sigh. "That depends. If we can prove she was a willing and active participant, yes. But we need to make this case absolutely bulletproof. I need you to keep playing along. Keep documenting everything. Record their arguments. Note every weird purchase, every threat. How long is this going to take, Robert? I need about 2 solid weeks to draft the injunctions, file the restraining orders, and coordinate with the district attorney. Can you hold out that long in that shed? I looked him dead in the eye. 71 years on this earth teaches a woman how to endure fire. I can hold out. Those next 2 weeks were the most grueling marathon of my entire life. I had to smile and play the part of the frail, easily confused old bat they desperately wanted me to be. I leaned into it hard. I started asking the same questions twice, conveniently forgetting the names of their friends, acting jumpy and frail. Kevin ate it up. He got sloppy. He left bank envelopes on the counter. He took phone calls on speakerphone. One afternoon, I caught him pacing the living room, talking to a real estate broker. Yeah, we are looking to list it for around $500,000 cash. Quick close. The old lady is moving into assisted living, so we just need to liquidate. I recorded the entire audio on my burner phone through a crack in the hallway door. My knees were shaking so bad I thought I was going to collapse, but I got the audio. Melissa was pulling away even further. She acted like a ghost, leaving early, coming home late, always hauling in shopping bags from Nordstrom or Sephora, wearing designer boots paid for with my blood, sweat, and tears. One evening, she strutted in wearing a gorgeous leather moto jacket that had to cost at least $2,000. I forced a smile and complimented it. She barely looked at me. Oh, thanks. Kevin spoiled me for our anniversary. Spoiled with money stolen from an old nurse's pension. Robert called me every single day on the burner phone, precisely at 1 in the afternoon, knowing Kevin and Melissa would be out. He was building an airtight case, getting the freezing orders ready for the bank. Just 1 more week, Grace. Hang in there. But the timeline blew up. On a Thursday night, Kevin barged through the front door, looking completely unhinged. He was sweating, pacing, and reeked of cheap whiskey. Melissa looked terrified, trailing behind him like a frightened puppy. They ate takeout at the formal dining table, eating off my mother's good china. I sat in my dingy shed, eating a cold plate of leftover pasta Melissa had unceremoniously shoved through the door. Around 10 o'clock at night, the shouting started. I crept out of the shed, sneaking up to the back door, and pressed my ear against the glass. We have to do this tonight, Melissa. The broker has a cash buyer lined up and ready to go. But she is never going to sign the deed over to us, Kevin. Even if she is confused, she will never sign away the house. Melissa was practically hyperventilating. She does not need to. I already forged the power of attorney. I will just forge the deed transfer. My stomach completely dropped out. What if the title company flags the signature? Melissa cried. They won't. And by the time anyone figures it out, we will be states away. We sell the house, pocket the $500,000, plus the $80,000 in her savings. That is nearly $600,000. We pack up, move to Florida, and start totally fresh. And what about my mom? Silence. Then, Kevin's voice, cold and dead. Your mom is going into a lockdown memory care facility. I found one a few towns over that takes severe dementia cases. It runs $6,000 a month, but it will keep her out of our hair permanently. A lockdown ward. They were going to throw me in an asylum to steal my life. I heard heavy footsteps stomping toward the back door. I sprinted back to the shed, dove onto the horrible cot, and squeezed my eyes shut, faking a deep sleep. The shed door yanked open. The harsh glare of the patio floodlight spilled into the room. I could feel Kevin standing over me, breathing heavily. I kept my breathing slow and rhythmic. She is out cold, he muttered. The door slammed shut. I waited 10 agonizing minutes, staring into the pitch black. Once I was sure they were by. I dragged the burner phone out of the mattress and dialed Robert. He picked up on the first ring. Grace, it is almost 11 at night. What is happening? I told him everything. The cash buyer, the forged deed, the plan to lock me in the psych ward. They are moving right now, Robert. We are completely out of time. I heard him exhale sharply. Okay. Change of plans. First thing tomorrow morning, I am filing an emergency ex parte injunction. I am freezing every single bank account, slapping a lien on the house title so it cannot be sold, and getting a judge to sign an immediate emergency restraining order to physically remove them from the premises. A restraining order? I am throwing them out onto the street, Grace. But I need you to stay completely off the radar for 24 more hours. Can you do it? I looked around the disgusting, moldy box my own flesh and blood had tossed me into. I thought about 42 years of backbreaking labor, stolen in a matter of months. I can do it. But I didn't need 24 hours. Because at 2 a.m, Kevin practically kicked the door of the shed off its hinges. Wake up, Grace. Get up right now. I bolted upright, my heart hammering in my throat. He was swaying on his feet, eyes bloodshot, reeking of alcohol. He held a crumpled stack of legal papers in his fist. The property deed. Sign right here. He shoved the papers into my face, holding out a blue pen. Sign the damn paper. Kevin, it is 2 a.m. What are you doing? Do not play dumb with me, you old bat, he roared, spit flying from his mouth. I had never heard him yell like that. You know exactly what this is. This house is being sold, and you are going to sign this paperwork right this second. Melissa appeared in the doorway, wearing her pajamas, looking utterly panicked. Kevin, stop. Not like this, please. Shut up, Melissa, he barked, whirling on her. Then he turned his dead eyes back to me. Do you think I am an idiot? Do you think I didn't notice you sneaking out the side gate? You think I don't know you are plotting something? My blood ran ice cold. He knew. Are you going to sign it or not? He took a massive, threatening step toward me. I am not signing anything. Everything happened in a blur. He lunged forward and shoved me hard. I flew backward, slamming violently into the drywall. Searing pain shot up my spine and exploded in the back of my skull. Kevin! Melissa screamed. You are going to sign it, he snarled, grabbing my upper arm with a bruising, vice-like grip. Or I swear to God, I will have the medics drag you out of here in a straitjacket tonight. I will tell them you went totally psychotic, that you are a danger to yourself, and they will lock you in a padded room. I looked him dead in the eye and saw the absolute truth. He would do it. He was fully capable of hurting me, locking me up, and erasing my entire existence. But I saw something else, too. He was desperate, backed into a corner. And desperate people get sloppy. Okay, I gasped, my voice trembling. Okay, I will sign it. Just let go of me. He sneered, releasing my arm, and shoved the deed and the pen onto the cot. I picked up the pen. I looked at the legal descriptions of my beautiful home. I looked at Melissa, who was now sliding down the doorframe, sobbing uncontrollably into her hands. And then, I did the one thing he never saw coming. I ripped the deed in half. Then I ripped it again and again, letting the confetti rain down onto the filthy concrete floor. The silence in that shed was deafening. Kevin's face turned beet red, a vein bulging in his forehead. He raised his fist. He was going to punch me right in the face. I knew it in my bones. But right before he could swing, I filled my lungs and screamed. I screamed with everything I had. Help! Call 911. Somebody help me. He is attacking me. I did not stop screaming. Kevin froze, sheer panic washing over his face. The houses on our street are close together. The neighbors were absolutely going to hear. You crazy old witch! He spat. He bolted out of the shed, grabbing Melissa by the arm and dragging her toward the main house. I heard frantic footsteps, the slam of the heavy front door, and the screech of tires peeling out of the driveway. They were gone. I collapsed onto the cold floor, gasping for air, my whole body throbbing, but I was alive. I pulled the burner phone out and dialed Robert. Robert, I need you at my house. Right now. He assaulted me. The neighbors definitely heard. Robert Hayes pulled into my driveway 40 minutes later, followed closely by 2 squad cars with their lights flashing. Martha, my neighbor at number 23, had called 911 the second she heard the screaming. The paramedics found me still sitting on the floor of the shed, shivering, a massive purple bruise already blooming on my bicep where Kevin had grabbed me. Grace. Robert dropped to his knees beside me. We need to get you to the ER to get a forensic medical exam. We need every injury legally documented. One of the police officers shined his flashlight around the squalid shed, then looked over at the beautifully remodeled main house. He did the math immediately. "Ma'am, do you actually live out here?" he asked, gesturing to the damp walls. "Yes, officer. They locked me out here 2 months ago." "And whose name is on the deed to the main house?" "Mine. I bought it myself. I paid off the mortgage myself. Everything is in my name." The officer shot his partner a hard look. "Do you have any idea where the suspects fled to?" "They took off in a panic after he slammed me into the wall, trying to force me to sign away the house." I spent the next few hours at the hospital, giving a sworn statement to a detective. Besides the massive bruise on my arm, I had a severe contusion on my back, and my blood pressure was spiking at 180/100. Stroke territory for a woman my age. We finally pulled back into my driveway at 6 in the morning. Kevin and Melissa were nowhere to be seen. They were probably hiding out in some cheap motel, terrified of the cops. Robert sat with me at the kitchen island, brewing a pot of fresh coffee. "We have the nail in the coffin now, Grace. Felony assault, elder abuse, fraud, forgery, unlawful detainment. The DA is salivating. I am filing the criminal complaints the second the courthouse doors open." "And what about my daughter?" He sighed, stirring his coffee. "She is an accessory. The text messages you photographed prove it. She knew the whole plan, she spent the stolen money, and she stood by while he assaulted you." He paused, looking at me gently. "But there is a distinction. In the texts, she is hesitant. Kevin is clearly the mastermind. He manipulated her, too. Being manipulated does not excuse throwing your own mother into a moldy shed." "No, it doesn't. But a judge will weigh it during sentencing." I just sat there, staring into my coffee mug. Melissa, my baby girl, the child I rocked to sleep, the girl I worked double shifts for just to buy her a prom dress, the daughter I loved more than oxygen itself. How did it end up like this? Kevin finally showed up around midday, alone. I watched from the window as he tried to jam his key into the front door, only to realize Robert had called a locksmith at 7 a.m. to swap the deadbolts again. I was the only one with a key. He furiously mashed the doorbell. I hit the intercom button. "Grace, please, let me in. We need to talk. I was drunk last night. I didn't mean it. Things just got out of hand." "I already did my talking, Kevin." "To the police detectives. There is an active emergency restraining order against you. If you step within 300 feet of this property line, you will be arrested on the spot." Dead silence on the speaker. "Then, did you call the cops on me? You spiteful old—" "I would watch your mouth very carefully," Robert said, leaning into the intercom mic. "This is Mrs. Grace's legal counsel. Every word you say is being recorded. You have 48 hours to coordinate with the precinct to schedule a police escort so you can collect your personal belongings." Another heavy silence. "What about Melissa?" "Same deal. The restraining order names you both." Robert hit the mute button. I stood in my foyer, staring at the heavy oak door, knowing the man who had robbed me, battered me, and tried to throw me in an asylum was fuming on the front porch. And honestly, I just felt a massive wave of relief. Over the next few weeks, Robert was an absolute machine. He locked down every single bank account. He filed an ironclad injunction against the deed so the house could not be touched. He managed to recover $25,000 that Kevin had stashed in a secret offshore account. But the rest of it, nearly $40,000, was totally gone. Blown on fancy dinners, designer boots, plane tickets, and garbage. "We can file a civil suit to garnish their wages for the rest of their lives," Robert explained in his office. "But honestly, Kevin is a terrible salesman and Melissa is unemployed. You are looking at getting $100 a month for the next 30 years. I don't care about the cash anymore," I told him. And I meant it. I just want them to face a judge. The criminal trial kicked off 3 weeks later. Kevin showed up looking like a deer in the headlights, represented by a completely overwhelmed public defender. Melissa arrived separately, flanked by her own court-appointed lawyer. When I saw my daughter walk into the courtroom, my heart physically ached. She had dropped 15 pounds, her skin was pale, and she had dark, bruised-looking circles under her eyes. She glanced over at me for a split second, and her face immediately crumpled into tears. The judge presiding over the case was a no-nonsense woman in her 50s, peering over thick tortoiseshell glasses. She slammed a massive stack of folders onto her desk. "All right, looking at the docket, the state is bringing charges of wire fraud, forgery, elder abuse, unlawful detainment, and aggravated assault. Is that correct, Counselor? Yes, Your Honor, the prosecutor replied. And we have submitted overwhelming evidence: bank statements, audio recordings, text logs, handwriting analysis proving the power of attorney was forged, and the hospital's forensic medical report regarding the assault. The judge slowly turned her gaze to Kevin. Do you have anything to say for yourself? He stood up, stammering. Your Honor, this was all a huge misunderstanding. I was just stepping in to help manage my mother-in-law's affairs because she was getting extremely confused and erratic. Confused? The judge snapped, cutting him off cold. She looked over at me. Grace, do you consider yourself a confused individual? I stood up tall, squaring my shoulders, and looked the judge right in the eye. No, Your Honor. I worked for 42 years as a registered nurse in an emergency room. I kept people alive for a living. I bought my home by myself. I raised a child by myself. I have never needed a babysitter in my life. What happened here was a calculated, predatory theft. The judge offered a tiny, razor-thin smile. That is exactly what the evidence suggests. She glared back at Kevin. You forged a legal document. You embezzled $40,000. You changed the locks on a woman's home, holding her hostage, and then you physically assaulted a 71-year-old woman in the middle of the night. You are fully aware these are massive felonies, correct? All the color drained from Kevin's face. I can pay the money back, I swear. With what money? According to your financial disclosures, you are completely broke. The judge turned her withering gaze toward Melissa, and you, the soul, flesh, and blood of the victim. What exactly is your excuse? Melissa was sobbing so hard she could barely stand. I never wanted it to go this far. I love my mom. I swear to God I do. But Kevin kept telling me her mind was slipping, that she needed memory care, that we were just doing what was best for her, and stealing from her. The judge finished the sentence. You were fully aware he was draining her life savings to buy you designer clothes? Melissa hung her head, weeping. I knew. And that didn't strike you as deeply wrong. He just kept saying it was an investment in our future, that my mom didn't need the money anyway because we were taking care of her, that robbing your own mother blind was acceptable behavior. The judge slammed her folder shut. There will be no plea deals in my courtroom today. I am handing down the maximum sentences the guidelines allow, and you two should start praying. The final sentencing came down 4 months later. The trial moved at lightning speed because the evidence was an absolute avalanche. The photos, the secret recordings, the bank traces, the handwriting expert. Kevin got slammed with 5 years and 2 months in a state penitentiary. Wire fraud, forgery, felony elder abuse, and domestic assault. He was also ordered to pay full restitution, plus punitive damages. Since he was broke, the state seized the only asset. He had a beat-up sedan that barely covered $5,000 at auction. He will be carrying a wage garnishment for the rest of his natural life. Melissa got off a little easier. 2 years of supervised probation for being an accessory after the fact, plus joint liability for the restitution. You chose a con artist over the woman who gave you life, the judge told Melissa as the gavel came down. That is a moral failure you have to live with, and a legal failure you will now pay for. I went back to my house. My real house. Free of parasites. Free of fear. I gutted that disgusting backyard shed completely. Not to live in. Never again. I tore down the moldy drywall, put in insulation, hardwood floors, and big glass windows, turning it into a beautiful sewing studio. I started making custom dresses again, not for the money, but because sewing has always been my therapy. I reclaimed my master bedroom. I hired junk haulers to throw out every single piece of cheap modern furniture Kevin had bought with my stolen money. I drove over to Connie's storage unit and brought back my real furniture. The heavy oak bed frame I had shared with my late husband, my vintage vanity, my embroidered curtains. I finally slept in my own bed, surrounded by my own life, and for the first time in nearly a year, I slept peacefully. Connie comes over for coffee every single Tuesday morning again. I joined a local support group at the community center specifically for seniors who have survived financial and emotional abuse. I share my story with people walking through the exact same nightmare. I give them advice, I show them the red flags, and I prove to them that they can fight back. Last month, An 83-year-old woman pulled me aside after a meeting. Her grandson had moved in, taken her debit card, and was secretly pawning her jewelry. I put her in the passenger seat of my car and drove her straight to Robert Hayes's office. Today, she is getting her house back. It became my absolute mission in life. Protecting the elderly who are being preyed upon by the people who are supposed to protect them. Melissa tried calling a handful of times. I let it go straight to voicemail. She mailed letters. I threw them directly into the shredder without opening them. Then one afternoon, she showed up on my front porch, sobbing hysterically, begging for forgiveness. I just stood in the foyer, looking at her through the glass sidelight. My daughter, the little girl I carried in my arms, who I taught how to tie her shoes, who I held while she cried at her father's funeral. The girl I gave my absolute everything for, who turned around and stabbed me in the back for a down payment on a condo. "Mom, please," she wailed through the glass. "I am so sorry. I was completely blind. I was so stupid. I filed for divorce the day of the sentencing. I am in heavy therapy twice a week. I just want to fix this." I slowly unlocked the deadbolt and opened the door. I just stood there, staring at her, crying on my welcome mat. "Melissa, you watched him force me to live in a moldy shed. You watched him change the locks on my own front door. You wore leather jackets bought with money stolen from my retirement. You sat at my dining table and agreed to lock me in an insane asylum. You chose him." "I know, Mom. I know, and it makes me physically sick every single morning I wake up. But you are my mom. Cannot you find it in your heart to forgive me?" I took a deep, steadying breath. Maybe one day, but not today. Probably not tomorrow either. You completely nuked 38 years of absolute trust. Trust does not just magically reappear because you say you are sorry. "How long is it going to take?" she pleaded. "I have no idea. Maybe years, maybe never. But you need to understand something very clearly, Melissa. Forgiveness is not a mandatory requirement. It is a choice. And right now, I am choosing not to give it to you." She nodded, tears streaming down her face, turned around, and walked to her car. I closed the door. I walked back into my living room and sat down in the floral recliner that belonged to my mother, the one Kevin called garbage. I looked around. My house, my belongings, my life. Mine. It was a brutal journey. There were nights I cried until I threw up, nights I questioned my own sanity, nights the betrayal burned a hole straight through my chest. There were days I seriously considered just giving up, swallowing the humiliation, and fading away into whatever miserable corner they shoved me in. But I didn't. Because dignity is not something you are just handed. It is something you have to fight tooth and nail to keep. And I fought. I am 71 years old. Statistically, I have 15, maybe 20 good years left in me. And I promise you, those years are going to belong entirely to me. I will live them in my own house, under my own rules, surrounded by people who genuinely love and respect me. No lies, no manipulation, no gaslighting. Robert Hayes still comes over for dinner every Friday night. It is our tradition now. He brings a nice bottle of wine. I cook a massive pot roast or a tray of homemade lasagna. We sit on the back patio, talk about politics, go over his current court dockets, and discuss the new seniors we are trying to rescue. "You saved your own life, Grace," he told me over a glass of wine a few weeks ago. "And now you are saving the lives of dozens of others. That goes way beyond just getting justice. That is finding a real purpose. Purpose. I like the sound of that. For decades, my purpose was raising my daughter. Then it was working grueling shifts and keeping patients alive. After retirement, it was just surviving day to day. But now? Now my purpose is screaming from the rooftops that senior citizens are not easy marks. We have constitutional rights. We have loud voices. We have grit. We can, and we absolutely will, fight back. And we will win." 6 months after Kevin was locked up, I got a random phone call from a journalist writing a massive investigative piece on the epidemic of elder financial abuse. "Grace, Robert Hayes passed along your number. He said you have an incredibly powerful story and asked if you would be willing to go on the record to help raise awareness." I hesitated. Did I really want to broadcast my trauma, my humiliation, And my family's dirty laundry to the entire city? It was terrifying. But then I thought about the thousands of seniors sitting in silent terror, thinking they have no way out. Yes, I told the reporter. Print everything. The story ran on the front page of the Sunday edition of the city paper. My photo, my real name, the brutal, unvarnished truth. How my own flesh and blood robbed me. How I was banished to a shed. How I was almost committed to a psych ward, and how I burned their entire operation to the ground. The fallout was atomic. My phone rang off the hook for a solid week. Strangers calling in tears with identical stories, scared seniors asking for a lifeline, guilty children calling to confess they had been financially neglecting their parents. A major morning news show reached out and asked me to do a live interview. I accepted. I sat in a brightly lit television studio, staring down the camera lens, and laid it all out there. What is your message to other seniors out there who might be trapped in this exact nightmare? The anchor asked me. I looked dead into the camera. You are not alone. Financial control is not love. Isolation is not caretaking. You have rights, you have a voice, you have power. Pick up the phone. Call the police. Hire a lawyer. Refuse to be treated like disposable garbage by the very people who owe you their lives. When that segment aired, the response broke the internet. Thousands of emails poured into the station. A 75-year-old woman wrote, "Thank you for giving me the guts to report my son to the authorities. I thought I was losing my mind. I thought nobody would ever believe me." A 68-year-old man wrote, "My daughter-in-law was doing the exact same thing to me. I saw your interview, called the cops the next morning, and now I am finally getting my house back." Every single message brought tears to my eyes. It reminded me exactly why I went through hell. Robert started a dedicated pro bono division at his law firm, focused entirely on aggressively prosecuting elder abuse cases. We have successfully rescued over 30 seniors in the last 6 months alone. You started a whole damn movement, Grace. He laughed one evening. People are waking up. I started traveling around the state, giving keynote speeches at community centers, retirement villages, and local churches. Always free of charge, always hammering home the exact same message. Educate yourself. Protect yourself. Stay vigilant. Know your legal rights, I tell them from the podium. Know the banking laws. Understand that forging a check is a felony. Understand that locking you in a room is unlawful detainment. And above all else, understand that you deserve absolute respect. People always ask me during the Q&A sessions if I am scared of retaliation. If I am worried about the day Kevin gets paroled and comes looking for revenge. Absolutely not, I tell them with a smile. Because I am not an isolated, confused old woman anymore. I have a massive support network. I have a brilliant lawyer on speed dial. I have public visibility. And most importantly, I have my spine back. 9 months into her probation, Melissa reached out one last time. Not crying on the porch, but via a handwritten letter in the mail. I actually opened it this time. My hands were shaking, but I read it. Mom, I know I have absolutely no right to ask for your forgiveness. What I did to you was monstrous and unforgivable. But I just need you to know that I wake up every single day violently hating the person I became. I divorced Kevin the day the gavel dropped. I have been in intensive therapy for 7 months. I got a new job, I am paying my own rent, and I am desperately trying to figure out how I let myself become so morally bankrupt. I do not expect you to forgive me. I just hope that maybe, one day before I die, you can look at me without feeling pure disgust. And I want you to know that the little girl you raised with so much love is still buried somewhere deep inside me, underneath a mountain of shame and regret. I am going to spend the rest of my life trying to be a better human being, even if you never get to see it. I love you, Mom. I always did, even when I was betraying you. Melissa. I wept over that letter. I cried for my lost daughter, for the crater she blew into our family, for everything we could have had if greed had not poisoned the well. But I did not write her back. I am just not ready. Today marks exactly 1 year since I took my house back by force. A year since Kevin was hauled off in handcuffs. A year since Melissa walked off my porch. I am sitting on the back patio right now, watering the peach tree. It is absolutely loaded with ripe, gorgeous fruit. I pluck one off the branch and bite into it right there in the sunshine, tasting the sweet memories of Melissa's childhood, of the perfect Sunday afternoons we used to share before the money ripped it all apart. I miss her sometimes. My little girl, not the monster who sold me out, but the kid she used to be. And I often wonder if my brain will ever let me separate the two. Robert always tells me that forgiveness is a long road, not a light switch. That you do not just wake up one day and decide everything is fine. It happens slowly, in tiny increments, when you least expect it. Maybe he is right. Because yesterday afternoon, for the first time in 12 months, I picked up my cell phone and typed in her phone number. I did not hit the call button. I just sat there staring at the screen, my thumb hovering over the green icon. I didn't press it, but I didn't delete the numbers either. It is a start, I suppose. I recently signed up for an acrylic painting class at the rec center. I always wanted to learn, but working at the hospital never left me any free time. Now I have nothing but time. I paint terrible-looking landscapes, clumsy flowers, and the peach tree in my backyard. I am absolutely awful at it, but I do not care. It is mine, it is my choice, and it brings me peace. I also started attending Sunday service again, after years of staying away. Not necessarily for the sermons, but for the community. I made new friends, people my own age who just want to grab a cup of coffee and have a genuine conversation. And I finally realized the massive difference between loneliness and solitude. Loneliness is dark and hollow. It is that awful mildewed shed, the crushing silence of being ignored. Solitude is a superpower. It is choosing to be alone because you love your own company. It is pure, unadulterated freedom. I learned how to fiercely guard my solitude. I am still taking calls from terrified seniors, still giving speeches, still sitting in Robert's office reviewing pro bono files. We have helped over 60 people escape from the clutches of financial abusers. Every single one of those tragic files could have been my life story. And it serves as a daily, glaring reminder of how incredibly lucky I was that I fought back when I did. Because not everyone gets that lucky. Too many seniors die in squalid back rooms, isolated, penniless, and entirely forgotten by society. Too many of them never find the Robert Hayes of the world to pull them out of the fire. That is exactly why I keep fighting. Not for myself anymore, but for them. If you are reading this or watching this, and you recognize this exact toxic dynamic happening in your own home or to someone you love, please hear me loud and clear. You are not alone. Elder abuse is real. It is savage, and it happens behind closed doors every single day. But hear this too. You can fight back. You can call for help. You can reclaim your life and your assets. It is never too late to stand your ground. It is never too late to draw a line in the sand. And it is never, ever too late to demand your dignity back. And if you are a son, a daughter, or a grandchild, I am begging you, look closely at the elderly people in your life. Look them in the eyes. Ask them if they are truly safe. Because sometimes they are screaming for someone to save them, but they are completely silent. They just need someone to finally pay attention. As for me, I am going to keep on living. Keep painting my terrible canvases, keep saving my peers, and keep watering my peach tree. I am going to keep being Grace, not the victim, not the confused old lady, not the easy target. I am the Grace who is fiercely independent. The Grace who built an entire life with her bare hands. And the Grace who, when the wolves came to the door to tear it all down, stared them dead in the eye, fought like hell, and won. Because dignity is not a gift. It is a prize you claim. It is a fortress you defend. And it is something you never, ever let anyone rip away from you. I got mine back. And I am holding on to it until the day I die. Now, if you like this story, click subscribe. And tell me in the comments, what part left you completely shocked? Oh, and do not forget to become a member to get access to exclusive videos I do not upload here. I will see you there.